Welcome to this third video of the Informal Music Pedagogy series. In this one we will be addressing the stages of the pedagogical process and particularly stages 1 to 3. These stages also come from the research done by Dr. Lucy Green on applying informal learning approaches in the music classroom. Stage 1 is all about creating a space where the music learners have to challenge themselves and have to set their own goals based on the music that they want to play. How this looks in practice, it begins with maybe the music teacher having a discussion with a group of students, trying to see how they perceive that popular musicians learn. Through the discussion, the teacher can learn how students are thinking about learning music, and that information can be used later to help students reflect back on their own ideas. But through the discussion also, the teacher can orient towards the principles that were discussed in the previous video. Some of those principles were selecting the music that the musician wants to play, trying to match the recording or the music piece by ear, learning in multiple ways, learning with friends, and even integrating a whole range of skills such as improvising, composing. So those are just some ideas that can come through in the discussion about playing music, about performing as well. The music learner can be asked to bring some music for the next time, so they have time to do some research on their interests, or it can be done on site using some of the devices they have at hand. Maybe their smartphones, maybe there's a computer in the room. Through that, they can gather around the people that they share similar music taste and start listening to music. The idea is to find music they like and that they are willing to share and that they are proud of, so that they can start sharing their culture as well. And through a teaching lens, we can start to take note of that. What is that music? It's useful to have something to write on, so that once you start to see some of the names of the music, you ask them, okay, so what's the name of the music, who's playing it? And they can use YouTube inside the room, and you'll start to write down what this music is, so that then you can use that and you can learn that as well. So an approach you can take is to ask them, what do you listen? What do we need to play this? And you'll start to hear responses such as, we need keyboards, we need guitars, there's a singer there. Once they have their own responses, you just encourage them to try it out. Gather from the room whatever you need and try to make it happen. When this type of approach happens, things can look quite messy in the room, as you might have multiple groups sharing music, listening to music out loud, laughing, talking to each other, trying to discuss why they like or why they don't like it. And once they start playing and gathering the instruments, you have to embrace that chaos and know that things will resolve as you move along. Commonly in a formal institution, the teacher or that who is in a position of an authority is in charge of trying to keep order, trying to keep things as quiet as possible, as orderly as possible. But this approach, this pedagogical approach, really challenges that in terms of real practices of how musicians learn outside of formal institutions. And the approach, the learning usually is quite messy. When you gather around with friends, you're joking around, you're playing around, but at the same time, you're having fun and you're playing music and you're learning new pieces of music and you're sharing that musical moment. We will see on the 5th video some more examples of how this looks. But it's important to know that for students to work in this approach, things will look and will get a little bit hectic in the room. And we need to learn to feel comfortable with that. And that's where the teacher role is, to step back and observe. Diagnose what students need implicitly and explicitly what they say they need and what you as a music educator can see that they are lacking or that they might need to get to their goals. Maybe their goal is to play a specific line, a specific part of the song, a specific instrument, a harmonic progression, and so you can start to see that they need maybe to learn some chords, that they need to learn some notes, some fingering positions, something that will help them achieve that a little bit of a faster rate without getting frustrated in the process. In the original pedagogical model, this stage was a little bit more rigid in terms of that for research purposes, the instructors were told to not intervene for 2 or 3 sessions. Of course, they have to be available to help students if and only if students ask for help. Otherwise, their job was to just observe and diagnose potential needs to move to stage 2. However, in practice, we don't need to be as rigid. We have to find that right balance between not intervening so that ideas can flow and ideas can develop at their own pace, and helping them before they start to feel frustrated because things are not working out the way that they want them to work out. After students were thrown into the deep end and were struggling a little bit while exploring, that's when the music educator, after having diagnosed some of the needs, will help by modeling and maybe by bringing even materials that can help students achieve their goals. In many cases, once the students select the music that they want to play, it's very likely that not only you have never played that music, but that you never heard it. So that's where your musicianship is put to the test. You would need to listen to the music and try to play it at that moment for them, to help them and to show them how that approach actually works. Some strategies is to try to find the baseline as a starting point. You hear the music, maybe using some headphones, because everyone's maybe trying out different stuff. So you might put a headphone on, trying to listen to the music and then trying to find the baseline. Usually with pop music, you might have music with 2, 3, 4 chords. So at least for a section, it might be easy to spot, okay, what's the tonal center, what's the key, and then trying to figure out the baseline. If that approach is not working, then trying to play the melody. Okay, what's the melody? Trying to play the melody, maybe on a keyboard, maybe on a guitar. And once you have the melody by ear, they will recognize it and they will, they'll go, right, that's it. They will be surprised by your ability, and they will also be able to understand that as a musical communication. Once you have the melody, you can do a harmonical analysis on the spot and trying to figure out, okay, if the melody is doing that, what's the likely key, what's the likely tonality for this melody. So those are just some ideas that you can implement while you're in there. It's also important to have, like I mentioned before, something to take notes. So you might write down the name of the song, and then you gotta go do your homework. So once you're home, once you're preparing for the next session, then you try to learn those songs. You look them up. You see if you can find some chord sheet on the internet. If not, you try to learn them by ear. And then remember also about approximating the sound. It doesn't also have to be exactly the same, but if you can get very close to where it's recognizable for the student that that's the song or the music that they want to play, then they'll be happy about that. And even if you simplify the arrangement a little bit, that will help them also get there, especially if they're beginners. So in that case, you learn the music before, you maybe write down the chords, and then you might develop some materials to help them out. Maybe a chord sheet, maybe some tab notation for them to read, maybe some patterns for the keyboard. Whatever the case that is, you're the professional there that will diagnose and provide appropriate resources for students to get to their own goals. Finally, stage 3, it's about cycling back towards stage 1. So maybe you already went through stage 1 and 2 with the introduction of the music piece or with the verse. Now what about the chorus? Maybe it has a different set of chords. So maybe it has different instruments, different instrumentations. So that's when you can put it back on the students and ask them, okay, what do we need now to play this new section? And then they go back into that process. In practice, if you're working with multiple groups, you will be doing this type of rotating instruction where you are gravitating from one group to the other, seeing what they need, how you can help if they need some help, assessing how they're progressing. And while you might throw one group back to stage 1, right, as for them to revisit a next part of a piece or something, and then you might be on stage 2 with another group, trying to help them out, trying to provide materials. So this requires a lot of patience from the instructors, but also a lot of patience from the students who have to wait almost for their turn while you're in there. So as a final reflection, what do you think about this idea of putting your musicianship to the test and learning some of the popular music that students select on the spot, trying to figure out the harmony, the melody, the rhythm of the songs on that moment, even the timbre sometimes, the instruments, they might have some intricate production and you need to recognize all the layers of the arrangement to see what instruments are being used. Are you comfortable with that situation? Are you comfortable learning music by ear on the spot? Remember, you can use the comment section to leave your response, and I'll see you in video number 4.